Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first live AMA for the Young Creators Project. We're so happy to have you here. We have such a great panel here for you today. My name is Liv Cerno. I'm an events producer here at KCRW, and I started the Young Creators Project. The panelists are going to share their experiences getting started in music, journalism, and art, along with answers to all of your questions. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Young Creators Project, this is our second year. It's a 3-month-long submission-based program where LA creators under 21 can submit their work to KCRW for the opportunity to be featured across all of our channels. So that's radio, web, socials, newsletters, you name it. Out of curiosity, has anyone here submitted to the Young Creators Project or plans to? Raise your hand. Okay. Some young creators. We love it. We're so excited to see your work. We are in our last days for visual art submissions, and starting March 1st, we're accepting journalism submissions, and starting in April, we're accepting music. So today we got a panel that can speak to all 3 disciplines. We'll have them introduce themselves and share their experiences entering the industries, but we'll open up questions to the audience and bring you a mic when the AMA portion begins. We already have a couple of your questions here. And so this event is being filmed for young creators who couldn't make it today. So the video will live on KCRW's YouTube channel afterwards. If you have any questions about the program, don't hesitate to introduce yourself after the event. I'll be in the DJ lounge where we had coffee and donuts. Without further ado, I would like to welcome to the stage KCRW host of Press Play, Madeleine Brand, KCRW DJ, Chris Douridas, KCRW Art Director, Evan Solano, our digital news producer and reporter, Danielle Chiriguayo, and digital music and culture producer, Andrea Domanick. Thank you.
Howdy, y'all.
Off to a great start.
Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for coming out, even the very young ones who maybe were dragged by their parents. It's so good to see all your faces and great to be together here at KCRW in the flesh. I'm Madeleine Brand. I'm the host of KCRW's Press Play, which your parents probably make you listen to when you're in the car with them. So I will be doing some of the journalism answering, and Danny Chiriguayo is also here, also doing some of the journalisming, answering.
Something like that. News?
Something like that. We're going to talk about art, and with Evan, we're going to talk about digital and art also, and music and journalism with Dre, who's done it all, and of course music with the OG, Chris Douridas. Woo-hoo. So let's start with telling your origin stories. And let's begin with you, Evan.
Oh.
I know. Sorry for the shock.
Oh, my gosh. I knew it was going to be me. Yeah, so I got my start in art and design as a late returning college student. I'd spent like 10 years after high school, kind of telling my mom, like, I'm just going to go like work. I'm going to hustle and make it. I was like working in the music industry for a while, interning at record labels, playing in bands. And then when that completely phased out, I was like, fine, I'm going to go back to school. And I got involved in journalism at my community college newspaper. And I'd always had like a natural ability for writing, but what I really gravitated towards was design and just being able to take a journalist's words and like really put a visual aspect to it. And so once I figured out what InDesign was, that was a game changer for me, was like figuring out how to design a newspaper, how to put it together. I was always fascinated by that, and I just went down that rabbit hole, and 10 years later, here I am now at KCRW, and it's been a fantastic journey, but it was one that was, school definitely would have helped me but with those 10 years, but, either way, it was a great experience, and here I am now, so that's a little about me.
Cool. Danny?
Howdy, y'all. How are we doing? How we feeling? Sunday? Hanging out? All right. Howdy, y'all. I'm Danny Chiriguayo, Danielle Chiriguayo. As Madeleine mentioned, I am a reporter and producer here at KCRW. How did I get started in journalism at KCRW? My parents made me listen to KCRW as a kid. I'm born and raised here, and I hated it. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna be absolutely honest, I hated it. I was like, who are these people? Like, talking on and on and on. I don't care about this. I'd rather listen to music. Like, let's listen to Britney. Let's listen to anything that wasn't talk radio, essentially. Eventually something happened. Some kind of worm weaseled its way into my brain. And also I realized that I love talking and talking a lot, and also listening to other people and hearing their stories and the crazy histories that they have and everything that kind of led them to where they are today. And ended up taking a high school newspaper journalism class. It was awful. I hated it too. I was like, oh man, I actually have to talk to people, but officially, and be like an official person. Long story short, it really I loved it. I loved it. Every time that I'm able to, sit there and just meet somebody, whether it's someone that I know or somebody entirely new, and they kind of trust me or my fellow compatriots or whoever it might be. So did a high school newspaper, college newspaper. Was over at Marketplace. I started in the digital realm, and then KCRW had this fantastic opportunity, which was the Report LA Fellowship, which not only was a way to do sort of online reporting and online kind of like listicle vibes, but also an opportunity to really step behind the mic and be able to craft and find and tell, the stories of my brothers and sisters and everybody else here in LA and all around. And 4 or 5 years later, here I am. So what a time.
It is a good time being a journalist. It's really fun. It's kind of like a secret that it's so much fun, because it seems unfun from the outside.
It's kind of like having homework every day, but you actually like the homework. So
it's actually, I like it.
Like
I like
homework for
to
the
describe it
rest of
as
your life.
gossiping for a living. It's basically gossiping for a living.
people tell you their secrets, which
Yeah.
is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
They trust you with them, and they'll be like, oh, hey, did you know this? And it's like, why are you telling me this? But all right.
Also, you can ask really nosy, impertinent questions and say, "Oh, it's my job. Sorry."
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
You get to constantly learn new things for a living. It's really tight.
Speaking of,
Hi. Can you guys hear me okay? Cool. Hi, my byline, Andrea, Domanick, internally to pals, I am known as Dre. I am, a multimedia producer, reporter, editor here at KCRW. And I started, one of the reasons I was so excited to speak at this is because youth journalism, youth writing, these kind of programs are super important to me. I would not be here without them. I started at a youth newspaper in Los Angeles, which sadly does not exist anymore, when I was 13, called LA Youth. And it was like a real newspaper that would get distributed to schools around LA. It was partially subsidized by the LA Times. And I learned, that's where I did my first album reviews. I learned to write headlines. I did my first reported articles. And I was just kind of hooked ever since. And it was just something for my parents to kick me out of the house and go do on Saturdays. But I really fell in love with it because what it did was show me that no matter who you are, because it was with kids from all over the city too, and no matter who you are, where you come from, or how old you are, you have a voice. Your voice matters. The stories and perspectives that you have matter. And I'm so grateful that I just was able to experience that from a young age. And that's something that's really important for me to, I think, continue to share with others and help people remember. So yeah, from there, I never went to J school or anything. I studied sociology at a liberal arts college on the East Coast. But then at the same time, I started interning, including for Madeleine back at KPCC. And I haven't stayed in radio. I started in public radio. Then I moved on to print, LA Weekly, a daily newspaper in Las Vegas called the Las Vegas Sun. And then I worked as an editor at Vice, heading up their music vertical, Noisy, for several years. So I got a really interesting digital and video experience there, and then did some worked as a columnist for the LA Times, and then I'm back in radio now here with KCRW. I've been here for 2 years, so.
and it's so great to have you back.
Good to be here.
It is a very small world, in case you've gathered that.
Yes.
So it's good to, it's a nice, we see each other throughout the years back and
It's
forth.
nice, yeah. Community is also one of my favorite things about working in journalism or in the arts, any creative field at all. It's really, it's more than just.
We're not doing it for the paycheck.
We're definitely not doing it for the paycheck, and it is also more than the thing that pays your bills.
True.
Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Douridas. I work on the music side of programming here at KCRW. I'm the oldest one up here, so my story might be longer, but but basically, when I was a kid, when I was your age, when I was very little, I was always drawn to music and movies and television, and I wanted to get involved in that side of the world as early as I could. Immediately when I sort of became aware that there's jobs in that world. Wait, I could do that. I could work. That could be my work. Why aren't you, Mom and Dad? Why aren't you working in that? That sounds like fun, So when you're that age, the only thing you can really do is like be in plays in school, and I was doing that and in first grade and all the way up and all the way through high school, and I ended up going to college on a theater scholarship. And in the college that I went to, the university I went to, they had a radio station in the building. And I was always a big music fan too. My mom had, Ray Charles records and Burt Bacharach records, and I was always really absorbing all of that. So music was always interesting to me. And I went down the hall to check out this radio station at the campus, and it turns out they broadcasted Dallas-Fort Worth, so they were like professional. And I was like, wait, I could do a music show between plays, between rehearsals and stuff, and that could be my job instead of waiting tables. I could be on the radio. That's kind of like theater, And I ended up I started doing a weekly music show at the college station called The Morning Exchange. I was mixing blues and bluegrass, jazz, reggae, Motown, local bands, this sort of eclectic mix of stuff. And I got good at it. I did it for 3 years. And then I thought, I'm going to try to work at the NPR station in Dallas, so while I'm working in the Dallas theater scene, I can continue doing this and work for NPR in Dallas. And I got a gig there at the NPR station. I went and
Is that
applied
KERA?
for KERA. Like, they had an opening weekend classical host, and
Oh.
What
were your classical chops?
They sucked, but I had a friend who ran the music department, the classical department, and he gave me a little primer on all the pronunciations, Debussy, Chopin, all this. So I went in like I knew what I was doing, and I got the gig. So I was at the NPR station there. I got promoted. I was doing all-night jazz there for 2 years, and the ratings started to sink at this public station in Dallas. They were classical by day, jazz by night, and they were like, we need to do something with our music programming. And me and one of my friends there, who had also worked at the college station with me, he knew about this morning exchange thing, and we pitched this idea. Why don't we make the programming eclectic, and start mixing folk music and other things into the classical by day, and at night we could throw in some Steely Dan and sort of peripheral jazz, Ricky Lee Jones, and some of you guys don't know who these artists are, but Stevie Wonder, just sort of mix it up. Anyway, the station became very eclectic in its format. It became hugely successful, and Texas Monthly did a cover story of that format change of this Dallas radio station. Jody Denberg did the article. I don't know if you know Jody, but anyway.
I don't. But I've never heard this story. I've never heard this story.
So I'm like, oh my God, we're on the cover of Texas Monthly about this eclectic music change. And in the article, they compared us to KCRW.
Who's that?
And that was the first time I heard of KCRW. And Tom Schnabel was quoted.
But
and
was there already Morning Becomes Eclectic?
Yeah, Tom was quoted in the article. This was in 90. This was in 1990. So when I read this article, I'm like, I'm going to move to Los Angeles, and I'm going to work at KCRW, and I'm going to continue working in film and TV, doing the acting stuff, right? So I put in my notice. I quit the job in Dallas, moved to Los Angeles, knocked on the door at KCRW. Tom was very friendly to me, but he was like, we don't really have anything. So it just turned out after I landed in Los Angeles, Jim Shveda, who was hosting a classical show, had just had a heart attack. And they needed somebody to fill in for him. And I was a classical host from back in the day.
So you knew your
the gig.
Debussy, yeah.
So I was Jim Shveda's sub for that whole summer while he was recuperating. And then at the end of that summer, Tom Schnabel announced he was quitting KCRW. Huh. And I swooped in, auditioned for Morning Becomes Eclectic, and I never left. That was November 90.
And here you are.
And here I am. So, yeah. That's how
That's a great story.
It's crazy.
He's also a good storyteller.
Serendipity.
Yeah.
Being open.
But also
being available.
And also
doing your homework.
You're willing to leave something that's secure.
Yeah.
And go take a risk.
It's hard to find new oceans if you don't have the courage to leave the shore, Madeleine.
Okay.
You know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You've also dabbled in a bit of music supervision over the years. I
Yes, a
understand.
little bit. Right.
No.
So did that music supervision came from
Everything that I do in Los Angeles has come out of KCRW. It's not a place where we get a huge paycheck, as they already established, but the pedigree of being part of KCRW is such a door opener, and immediately gives you some credibility in this city for almost anything else you might want to do. And because I was on the radio every day for a long time, I would get calls from filmmakers and TV producers. Hey, I want to put that in my show. And then finally, I just this guy Michael Mann, who's a big filmmaker, was calling me every day about this stuff I was playing, and I said, well, you could hire me as a consultant. And this was my first movie. It was a movie called Heat with Robert De Niro and
No
Al
big deal.
Pacino.
Oh my God.
And I just kept doing that, and now pretty much every DJ here at KCRW is music supervisor.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I do that too. And, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. He is KCRW, you guys. It's Douridas.
That means I've been here a long time.
Exactly. My origin story is from very long ago. I first started at Los Gatos High, working for the newspaper, doing a couple record reviews. I know. So then I started doing reporting, much like you, and then I didn't think then I went to college and I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And then I attended kind of one of these sessions for the radio station at Berkeley, CalX. And I thought, I want to do that. So, with all my free time when you're a student. And so I started volunteering at CalX, which is a mighty 500-watt station in Berkeley. So it reaches across the street, basically. So I did music, I did some DJing, and I had a DJ name.
What was it?
It's pretty good. It's kind of in the Chris
Brand
Douridas
spanking. No.
pun department. It was called, my name was Madam Bomb.
Was it really?
Wow.
It was.
Madam
We got a
Bomb.
local
That's
superhero
good.
here.
It's pretty good.
That's very superheroine vibes.
That's
Thank
very
you.
cool.
Thank
Madam
you.
Bomb.
But then I
Nobody's
started doing
taking
music.
that. It's still available.
Nobody's
isn't
taking it? Well, do you have any openings?
Well,
2 to
folks who don't
4
know,
a.m. shift?
one of our
Yeah.
featured artists from the last year's Young Creators Project is a band called Madam Bombs.
I heard that
Yeah.
on the radio, and I was like, wait a minute.
You're like, hold on.
Lawsuit.
Exactly. Copyright, TM, whatever. So then I also did news. So I was in the news department, and I did all sorts of stuff. And then I ended up graduating and just doing news and being in public radio. And at that point in the world of news, you would go to a small market, tiny market, and then work your way up. So I went to Buffalo, New York, from California, so that was fun. And stayed, and then kind of bounced around and ended up at NPR in Washington, and got a graduate degree on the way at Columbia, and kind of did a little dabbling in other media, print and TV, but I just kind of kept coming back to radio because I think it's just the best way to tell stories. It's just personally satisfying to create radio, and I think it connects with the audience in a way that other media does not, in a very personal way. So I like that about it. And plus, like I was saying earlier, it's just fun. It doesn't feel like work. I get to ask questions and meet interesting people for a living, and I just love it. So I've been doing it forever, pretty much, and ended up at KCRW almost 10 years ago, if you can believe that.
Yeah, God,
Chris
seems like
tried to help me create the name of Press Play, and he had some great suggestions. Would you like to share with the audience?
I mean, brand spanking news. Madeleine brand spanking news.
Brand
great is that,
spanking
right?
news. Yeah.
Or the brand news. The brand news.
Yeah.
These are
Anyway,
great.
so that's pretty much the shorthand version of my origin story, and it's not terribly exciting, but it is steady in the sense that I think that I found something that I loved and just kept with it, and through my 100,000 minutes and hours of it, I think it's turned out to be pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. Can I add on to your thing about how it doesn't feel like work?
Yeah.
Everything that I do that's related to KCRW and the things that have come out of it has never felt like a job to me. When people say, so, what's your job? I flinch because I'm like, I don't have a job, is my first thought. I feel like I screw around all the time, that I'm just like playing all the time. And then I have to remind myself, no, I actually make money doing these things. This is work, but it doesn't feel like work. And that's such a beautiful gift, what you don't make in the huge bucks world, you gain in satisfaction that you're part of something bigger than you that's making a difference in the world. And I always felt that about KCRW. So.
Let's start with just one piece. Let's go. I want to go down the line again. Just one quick piece of advice for someone who's perhaps looking for a career. What would be your first, and just starting out, what would be your first piece of advice?
Me?
Yeah.
Follow your heart. Follow what you feel you're drawn to. A lot of people talk themselves out of things. Oh, I'd love to be a singer, but I'm not a singer. I can't sing. Or I'd love to be a musician, but I don't know how to play guitar. Don't talk yourself out of things. Open yourself to the possibilities of the thing that you're feeling in your heart, that you're drawn to, that brings you joy. You're not going to know something overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take 10,000 hours, 100,000 hours, whatever it might be, to get to a point where you can feel comfort and, accomplishment in those fields that you choose. But just follow your heart. That's what I would say.
Love it. Trey?
You mean career in general, or specifically like one of like journalism or
One of these specifically.
One of these,
yeah.
I think don't wait for permission. Start doing. I think, it's for better or for worse, media, isn't just picking up a newspaper anymore. Like, you can go out. It's never been easier to report or to tell stories. I don't think it's ever been harder to do it well and thoroughly and in the public's best interest. But you can go out there and start at any of these, art, music, journalism, writing, whatever. Just do it. Don't wait until you're in the right position or you have a paid opportunity to do it or an internship. So if you're interested in it, start doing it. And if you don't know how, seek out people, find their Twitter, find their email, and ask them.
That's a really great piece of advice. I feel like you might feel shy to come up to anyone or to reach out to them and they don't know you, but people love to give advice. Here we are all here on our Sunday afternoon giving you advice because people love to be asked for
Especially
their advice.
when you're being asked about something that you find joyful that you're doing. Because it's a little bit nice to see somebody younger who's interested in what you're doing, and if they to feel their passion for it is nice for me.
Absolutely. And
so
to give back.
They're more inclined to help you, because they feel your passion for what you're doing.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to seek out mentorship, and if someone doesn't want to mentor you, they can probably direct you to someone who can. So, or if they don't have time to mentor you, which might be a thing.
My biggest one is really embracing your failures. I've always had a really hard time with not being good enough or not doing a great job, or in school getting a B or a C or a D or failing. I failed. I quite literally failed a few classes and quite a lot of papers and everything here and there, right? But I think that there's something special about realizing, okay, hey, I'm not perfect, and maybe perfection is never possible. Every day and in every way, you can get better and better and better and better. And that's one of the things that I've learned, especially during the pandemic, where it's we have no idea what we're doing. I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I do. I can do my job, I guess. But really, we're just always constantly meeting new people, finding new stories, looking for different stories, right, that can help represent and our communities. But sometimes it can be hard to find those stories or find those people, or sometimes someone will say, no, I don't want to be interviewed, or, you'll put together a story and maybe someone in it doesn't like it, right? Or something like that. It's just so important to be like, hey, like, this didn't work out, but the next thing will. And we can always, you know, move forward. I remember one time when I was a fellow and I was on Madeleine's show shadowing, I had a script ready. And so it was the first time that I was by myself telling Madeleine about the guest, about the topic. I got so anxious, y'all. I started crying. I cried. I was so nervous because I was like, this is Madeleine Brand. This is Madeleine Brand. Oh my God, I love her show. Like,
I'm such a brute.
No, you're fine, but that's the thing, right? It's like I was so nervous about not getting it right. And at the end of the day, I don't even know if that segment was great or not. And honestly, like, I don't really care anymore because it was a learning moment. It was a moment where it was like, hey, like High School Musical, we're all in this together. And sorry, I've actually never seen it. Maybe I should be admitting that. But I'm of the age of the time. I allegedly, folks love it. But all to say is really go out there, follow your heart, find the opportunities. And sometimes it'll work out and sometimes it won't. But as long as you look into yourself and you continue to want to do it, just do it. What's the worst that can happen?
We'll only learn from it. I think that's such a good piece of advice, Danny.
Yeah.
Evan?
For me, I would say, like, watch a lot of movies, watch a lot of TV, go out to museums, spend hours listening to records. For me, like, one of the biggest things is, like, it's really important for me to not only, like, show what I'm, showing to the world, but it's really what I'm taking in, I feel. And I think, like, as I was growing up, like, I had always been gravitating towards movies and films, and I would spend hours, like, listening to Metallica records and looking through the booklet and like who was the artist who did this. And by doing that, it really helped me develop my own style and my own voice, even before I even knew what I wanted to do with it. But I really think that as I've gotten older now, like, I've really developed a very distinct style, and that's all because of the influences that I grew up with. And it's something that, like, I feel comfortable in a certain, like, if I needed to, like, do, like, a watercolor soft painting, I'm not the guy that you want to go to for that. And, like, but only by me, like, discovering what I loved I was able to learn my limitations, and not only my limitations but my strengths. And so, there are days where, like, if I'm, like, this weekend I've been, like, just completely in grind mode. I've just been, like, working, like, on a bunch of projects that are coming out for KCRW. Later today, I'm gonna have what I like to call, like, just a chill day, where I'm just gonna absorb media. Where I'm just gonna, like, sit around. I'm gonna watch, like, movies. I'm gonna watch a bunch of Sergio Leone films, or I'm gonna watch a bunch of like John Ford movies. I don't know. Just, like, I just want to, like, take a day and just, like, take in media, as opposed to, like, always grinding and putting stuff out. Like, I feel like there's such a, like, nowadays, this emphasis to content create, and, like, I need to put myself on Instagram. I need to, like, show how I made this project. I need to show how I did this on Photoshop. And it, like, I just feel like, as an artist, sometimes it's really important to, like, exhale, like, take in media and take in, like, things. And you can tell your parents, like, if you're, like, watching TV, you can just, like, I'm researching right now. This is it's part of my process. But truly, it's a lot of it too. Like, when I'm watching a movie, like, I'll sit there. I'm like, why did Scorsese use this music in this one scene? Like, what is, like, Chris, like, the fact that you did the music supervision on Heat, like, you've just, like, shot up to, like, the most
consultant. I was a consultant.
Like, Heat is one of my favorite. When he said that, I audibly gasped, because it's one of my favorite films of all time. But, like, again, when I'm watching things like this, I'm not just, like, wasting my day. I'm, like, studying, why did Michael Mann use this technique? Like, why did he have this angle? Like, why, like, I just found out that there was this one shot in the film where, like, it was based off of this, like, a painting that, like, I forgot the artist, like, but just that correlation between, like, this scene that De Niro, like, when he's overlooking the ocean, and then there's this painting that mimics it almost exactly. It's so incredible once you make that connection. And that's something that it fuels me as an artist to be like, oh, I want to, like, start, like, I want to do my version of this. So my best advice is to, like, Watch TV.
Watch TV.
Yes. Go to the movies. Go to the museum.
If you get one thing from this afternoon.
Binge it all.
I've given you permission. Watch TV all Saturday.
Okay, so it's your turn now to ask questions. We have some written down here, but if you want to ask live, IRL, we have a microphone here. Yes, right there.
Thank you. So some of you mentioned already, what you majored in or studied, but what did you study in school, and how do you think that's helped you in your careers right now?
I studied English at Berkeley, and it helped me immeasurably because it taught me how to think and how to write. And I think in almost any career that you choose, you need to know how to communicate, and you need to know how to communicate effectively. And writing is key to that. Reading and writing, that's how you're going to learn how to write well. And I can't emphasize that enough. Even in our digital world, we need to know how to write.
I mean, I mentioned already I was a theater major, but I minored in radio, TV, film, which was worthless at the college that I was at. My real training in that world came by getting cast in movies or going out and getting these radio gigs I told you about. But also it was a full-fledged college education, so I was taking English and science and all that.
I studied sociology at Wesleyan University, and that has helped me immeasurably. Sociology teaches you, it taught me how to look at systems and perspectives and really understand context and the multifaceted sort of ways that people communicate, the places that people are coming from. And yeah, I think what Evan was talking about is sort of like a similar flip of that. It's like you just have to absorb context, and sociology just taught me how to understand systems, people, challenges, gray areas, complexity, how to read between the lines. Really recommend it. It's fascinating.
I studied communications over at Washington State University in Washington State. Go Cougs. Sorry. But besides that, I was also involved with the Daily Evergreen, which is the local paper. And then besides that, I was also really involved on campus as well, which I really do credit, I think, being able to just like talk to people. A little bit about me, I actually used to stutter a lot as a kid, and when I'm like really anxious or like really feeling something, like it'll kind of come out, which I'm pretty surprised I haven't stuttered too much today. So I'm not used to being in front of a crowd after so long. But no, I mean, I was an RA, I was a camp counselor, I was a part of student government, and I met all these kinds of different people from all walks of life, of all ages, especially on a college campus, right? It's like you have first year, students who are 16, 17, 18, to like folks who are coming back to school to get, whether it's to like start their, getting their BA, or they're finishing up something that they started 30, 40 years ago, or it's folks coming in for their PhDs or their masters or whatever it might be. Just kind of started with a paper and then just started talking to a lot of people and hearing their stories and going from there.
I never went to like a 4-year university. This is like much to my mother's chagrin. She was like, oh God. But like, so when I was at my community college, I studied journalism under there, and again, just kind of developed a natural like fixation on InDesign and like design and layout. The thing was, my professor or my advisor, she was like not very like technologically proficient. She was the kind of woman who would like put her cell phone, turn it off, put it in a Ziploc bag and put it in her like she checked her email once a day. Like she was very old school. And so
I feel like we should get back to that.
Honestly, she was ahead of the curve.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Like it did teach me a couple things. It taught me, one, that I need to, if I really want to like get passionate and like learn more about InDesign and how this works, I need to, one, do my own research and like kind of like, discover how to do things, develop my own technique. Two, to lean on mentors. And that really inspired me to like lean on the alumni that Citrus College provided. So like there were like mentors who have gone on to go work at the Wrap, the Orange County Register, like LA Times. And so as a young student, I was like my mid-20s, I'd like to say that, but here I am just hitting them up and like asking for their advice and just like, again, bothering them because like they took the time to like come to these journalism conferences. They took the time to like say, Heaven, if you ever need anything, let me know. Like, and so I did it, and I got subjected to like some pretty harsh criticisms, very harsh critiques, but again, about owning your failures. I mean, it really taught me. I really appreciate the fact that they weren't like, hey, this is fantastic. You got this all in this gross font, great. Like they really did like sit down and be like, why did you choose this typeface? And I was like, oh God, I don't know. I just thought it would be cool, and it really taught me to develop a style and to really fight for my decisions as an artist. So, general education definitely helped. But journalism, like the best knowledge, the best education is going to be your mentors and whatever research you do on your own. Like University of YouTube saved saved me very much. Like I've learned half the things I've learned as far as InDesign and Photoshop. I've learned it from like just watching tutorials on YouTube.
Interesting.
So
That's interesting. More
We've
questions?
got a question upstairs, actually.
Oh, we
Hello
do?
up there.
Oh, I didn't
Howdy,
realize. Hello up
Yeah,
there.
y'all can't see me. Can y'all hear me though?
yeah,
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Can see you.
so clear. I was like,
I'm right here.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
oh, there.
Gotcha.
Also went to YouTube University, so shout out to YouTube.
Go tubers.
My question. My question is, how do young people become fellows, if that is an opportunity, and does KCRW work with system impacted youth?
Ooh, I don't know that answer. I don't know. Do you? Well, you were a fellow. Do you know the?
So right now we are hosting our second news cohort. So that is through the Report LA Fellowship. Its goal is really to and take this with a grain of salt because I'm not an official person with the program anymore, I guess. But its goal is to find folks who, from underrepresented communities, essentially, right? I mean, we talk about media, we talk about the people who are telling our stories, and we want them, especially here at KCRW, to reflect our communities, right? I mean, we have some of the most diverse neighborhoods from every corner of the world represented here in LA, in LA County, in Southern California, in California, here on the West Coast. And so we have our second cohort that is currently doing that, but I think they have another 6-7 months probably in their fellowship. We also have a couple of other fellowships as well.
It should be on the website, right? All the information should be on the website about applying and when the dates are.
Yeah, but I would say, hey, if you see me out, I'll be kind of milling about outside. Like, let's connect and we can figure it out and get you.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, wait for the mic.
Hi, so my name is Marcella. My friend called me Ella. I study in SMC on theater arts, actually. But I wanted to become a singer and songwriter. So I was like asking, like, how do we break into that industry, especially because it's like kind of hard when you don't have like connection per se. So
That's a Chris question.
Are you writing songs now? Then you're a songwriter, right? Yeah. How do you break into being a singer-songwriter? Is that what you're asking? Yeah. How do you? Yeah. I mean, everybody's story is different, but I would suggest. I always tell people just write great songs, record. It's never been easier to like have ideas and get them down and be able to share them with people, and you're in the music capital of the world here in Los Angeles. So there's immense opportunities for open mics or getting booked on stage at Hotel Cafe or any, how old are you? 19? Okay, so you're very close to being able to go out and do these showcases and things, right? Are you going out to see live music? Yes. Definitely recommend that because when you do that, you're just going to naturally become part of the LA music scene. You're going to meet people. You're going to meet like-minded people who you admire. You might see their set, and you meet them afterward. You see who they're working with. It's important, I think, for you to at some point recognize what you're good at and what you're not good at. Not everybody is capable of writing a whole song by themselves, producing a whole song by themselves, or performing a whole song by themselves. Some people do all of it themselves, Some might need a collaborator. Some might need a lyricist. Maybe your lyrics aren't that great, but your music's amazing, or the other way around. You'll start to recognize over time from sharing it with people or your own good instincts where you shine and where you don't. And you want to shore up those areas that you're not great at. I get a lot of demos from people that it's a beautiful song, but the lyrics are very boring, or just generic. And I'll say to them, have you ever thought about working with a lyricist or a co-writer? And when you do that, you want to reach to somebody that's better than you, You want to go to the people that you admire. I'm sure it's easy for you to figure out who lives in Los Angeles that's got some semblance of a career, and you can look to see who's producing them. You can find all that out on Spotify. You can just look and see, how to do that, I suppose, right? Yeah, because, there's a lot of information on Spotify that a lot of people don't know about, but you can find out who produced that person. You can reach out to them on Facebook or Instagram or, hey, love what you did with so-and-so. Would you listen to my music, Because these producers are also young and up and coming.
Are
and
they
wanting
amenable
to
to that? Or do they think, don't be a pest, don't bother me?
No, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not amenable. They just don't answer. But, or you go to that
But
artist
how
show.
much should you bother them, in other words? Not bother,
you have to
but
be very,
how
respectful.
aggressive should you be?
You don't want to be annoying, but a persistent, determination is good. You don't want to be a stalker. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying there's really, don't wait for permission, go, and maybe you're just saying, oh, hi, I just want to say I love what you did with so-and-so's record. If you ever want to, listen to, I'd love to share, and maybe they're like, oh, yeah, I'm just busy these days. And then you see them 3 weeks later or a month later, and hey, I'm that guy we just met. Oh, and you build a rapport,
Would you recommend sending unsolicited songs or tracks?
No, you want to make sure they're going to be open to hearing them before you just fire off.
Okay.
I wouldn't just send a SoundCloud link with your songs to people. I would wait to see that there's somebody with a pulse on the other end. But there's. I hope some of this is making sense. I mean, I'd like to hear what you're working on. The other thing I would say is, and then there's so much I could sit here and tell you, but when you're sharing music with other people, make sure that you can put your shoulder behind it. You don't want to send people stuff that you have to apologize for, and that doesn't mean it has to be a perfect production, perfect recording, perfect everything. But the song itself. You could be sitting at your kitchen table with your phone there and record a demo that will make people weep. It's so beautifully done. I play things on the radio all the time that are simple demos. If the song is coming through to you, if the idea is there, if the essence of what you're trying to do is coming forward in this demo, that's enough to share with somebody. And that's the thing that's going to sometimes be hard to beat when you actually get a record contract or you go into a studio to do it proper. You might never do better than what you did at your kitchen table. So what I'm saying is that when you put down your ideas, try to get the essence of what you're feeling and you're hearing in your head onto that tape, and that will be your calling card.
Wow, you just made a connection with Chris. Now you can send him your stuff. Yeah.
I had a question about basically what you were just saying about sending your stuff out there. Does KCRW welcome new ads? Do you have a music director that younger
She's
artists
right there. She's right there.
would send stuff to? Hiding in
She's
back.
hosting my radio show right now.
That's Ann Lit.
That's Ann Lit.
It's another connection right there.
Should I take this one too?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we don't have a formal way of doing that. The station tried to do that. It failed miserably because we were just overrun, and we expected that, and that's what happened. But I think KCRW's staff, I mean Ann, Raul, Tyler, all of us, everybody's really approachable. Everybody's building their own relationships with the artistic community. You can find them on the socials. You could send it to the station. I don't think that's the best way to do it because it'll just, Jason, be like, but he handles all the incoming
He
mail
handles
and stuff.
everything.
Yeah, he handles everything. But, yeah, you can share it with me. You can send it to me, But yeah, a lot of the DJs have their own little events outside of KCRW that they'll present new music. I have this thing called School Night. Has anybody heard of School Night? Do you guys know what School Night is? It's been going for 13 years. It's a showcase every Monday in Hollywood of up and coming, largely unsigned artists. It's for 13 years. Billie Eilish came through early on, and Doja Cat, and Dua Lipa, and Lizzo, and Alt J, and Wolf Alice. All these amazing, crazy bands over the years, and that's a good place. Ella, right? Ella, yeah. I would suggest checking out School Night. It's at Bardot in Hollywood. But so I have that. But other DJs, we all a lot of us have different things where, we're looking for new up and coming.
And how do
baby
they
bands.
contact the DJs?
Yeah, like I would say, everybody's got an Instagram account.
Okay.
Or, people come up to me at school night. I'm there every week if I'm in town, so that's how a lot of people reach me, I don't always respond to the Instagram. I'll be honest with you. Sometimes it's hard to keep up, but people come up at school night all the time. Hey, I have something, and they'll share a SoundCloud link or send me something, But yeah, just be resourceful. Don't,
I'd also add to that. Even though I was like, don't wait for permission, I'd also say do your research though. You're gonna get a lot more bang for your buck. And I'm speaking kind of more from like a music journalist perspective here, I guess. All of us, like, we are getting, because people hire publicity firms too. They're just, I can't tell you how many emails we get of just like pitches of just like, listen to this record, listen to this record, listen to that record. And you can tell which ones have spent time getting to know you and what your like musical taste or area of expertise is, and what is just like, I'm like, this probably went out to Jason, it went out to everyone at KCRW, like, rather than being like, oh, well, Tyler Boudreau, she really likes like, psychedelic rock, so I'm gonna send it to her, but I'm not gonna like send it to someone who might play like more pop or something like that. And that's also gonna make you more inclined to like respond to someone, because you feel like you're actually like meeting a human and you're not just like having stuff thrown at you.
Right. You don't want a generic email. Like, I hate it when I get emails and it looks like they copy and pasted.
Like, dear,
and it says
Chris,
John, but wait, my name's Chris. The bad copy paste,
The amount of times
the
I've
different
been called
fonts.
Andrew.
Yeah.
In
Wow.
pitches, yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Off to a great start.
I'm like, cool, you really looked me up. Yeah, but you're also just gonna see higher returns too, because you're not just putting your stuff out into the ether. You're sending it to a human that might actually be interested specifically in what you do. So, yeah.
And also, like, one thing also, I was, like, when just hearing you talk about like school night, like how important it is to like actually go out and network, like, and just genuinely go out, because not only do you like run into someone like Chris, but you also meet like fellow peers and maybe like fellow songwriters, and you can like talk in a more open setting where it doesn't feel so like stodgy and like, oh, we're at this conference, like you can just have like natural conversation with people. Like how I met Dre was actually through like this, like, what was it, the boycott LA Weekly thing that was going on, like, so I met Dre like years ago through this thing, and I co-founded this magazine called theLAnd, which was like an independent DIY magazine that was all about LA, and our mission was to like bring back the spirit of an alt weekly with like the look of a glossy magazine. And Dre was one of our writers, and then years later she tells me, oh, actually KCRW is hiring an art director and your stuff's amazing. And here I am now, like on stage here. So again, but like meeting her was just through this, happenstance thing over at Little Joy, and there was these like, we just have these little hangouts and talk about local journalism, and I got to meet like people like Jeff Wise, who is like now one of my best friends, and like Jen Swan, like these people who are like these names, and like Sarah Bennett, like names and faces of writers and people who have like grown up, reading in the LA Weekly, and then meeting them and just not just bugging them to be like, hey, like let me help out, like, but being a genuine like friend and having a rapport with these people. It's super, super important to do. It's something, I know I said stay home and watch movies and stuff, but also go out and meet people. I'm like highs and lows here, but
I think I will underline one thing that you're saying that I don't think's been said very clearly. I think there's a tendency these days for people to do everything on the computer, send stuff out and all that. Mm-hmm. The importance of being in the room it cannot be oversaid here. I think when you're, like, the school night thing is a perfect example. When you walk up to somebody and you're right in front of them, and they see your shining face with this big glowing, dilated pupils of enthusiasm for this person. You're standing right in front of them. They feel that passion in a way that they would never get over an email, And those personal connections are so valuable. Mm-hmm. You have to go out and venture into the world and get in the room and exude that passion.
That's great advice. Absolutely. Yes. Oh, wait, hang on.
Actually,
Sorry.
Hello. Do you guys have preconceived notions when you hear auto-tune? And if so, what is your preconceived notion?
Oh,
Ooh.
bad.
That's why I was worried.
I would not say that. I would answer that differently.
That's my preconceived notion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What's your preconceived notion, or do you have one? And if so, what is
Bad.
it? That would be my guess that most people. Because admittedly, I like autotune, but I
think it's an artistic choice sometimes. You know, look
Yeah.
at the Lil Yachty record. You know,
Yes,
I
I was
feel
right about to mention that.
yeah, and
you guys played right before this.
yeah. I mean, I love that Lil Yachty record, and I think it's all about how the finished product sounds, man. You know, sometimes it's an artistic choice. If you're, you know, I've done sessions, live recording sessions with like Britney Spears, and they're using autotune. It's like, wow, okay, that's a little different because it wasn't. They're doing it as a lift to their performance, and it works fine because it helps them get through a lot. She's dancing and stuff, so I cut her slack, you know. But
We're cutting her a lot of slack. She's been through a lot.
she has been through a lot.
Leave Britney
Let her
alone,
auto-tune.
guys.
Let her
yeah,
have
I would
her
just say it depends
auto-tune.
on how it's used. You know, you can take any tool and misuse it or use it properly and make it
100%, yeah.
cool. You know.
I agree, but I feel like it strikes people's ear in this way. It's like, oh.
Well, I'm sure there's some people. There's a legion of people that might have a knee-jerk reaction. I'm like, oh, next.
But people used to say that about synthesizers,
Yeah,
right? Like
exactly.
me.
True.
Yeah.
I think it's all about context. You know, it's like, what's your reaction when you hear a guitar? Like, well, who's playing it? What other instruments are involved? Like, is it an experimental, like, ambient thing? Is it some, like, is the person using this to be lazy, or are they using it to be creative? What are they trying to convey with it? Like, what's, you know, for me, when I listen to music and when I make music too, it's like, what's the intention behind anything? Like, what's, like, maybe this is because I'm a writer, like, I kind of like read everything. Like, what's the story being told here? So I'm never going to, personally, I'm never going to judge anything just because something's getting used. I try to see, yeah.
And some people aren't great singers, but that helps them, you know. When you have a weakness artistically, sometimes you lean into that, and that becomes part of your personality as an artist, right? And that might make you want to lean on autotune to find some cool new way of, you know, making an artistic statement. Like Dre said beautifully, you know, it's about context.
Yeah. And sometimes like things that like may seem like weird at the time like come back around in fashion, you know. So like someone like T-Pain, when he's like, you know, like years ago we made fun of it, but like, you know, what is that thing, like T-Pain walked so Lil Yachty can run, you know what I mean? Like it's like it came back and I mean, come on, it's like Bartender came on right now, we're all not gonna start dancing. I mean, you know, it's like at the time it was like easy to make fun of it, but again, that's kind of like artistic choice, context. But you know, again, there's some things that like some trends do come back around, and it's sometimes like you can't be a leader by doing what everyone else does sometimes. So shout out to T-Pain.
Right. And put your cell phone in a plastic bag.
Yeah, exactly.
Or there, that'd be easier for now. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Ajala, and I'm a musician. And I just wanted to ask, like, where is the best place to start, and how do you put yourself out there in the best way possible?
What do you play?
I sing, and I play guitar, drums, and bass.
Wow. Are you making your own music?
Yes.
And are you putting it out there?
I'm still trying to figure out how to be able to do that.
And is it SoundCloud you put it? She should put on? Or
Are you recording?
Yes, I've started doing that.
Then you are starting. You're starting in the right place, your bedroom. That's the right place to start, you know? And as I was saying to Ella, you know, when you get to a point where you feel like it's something you want to share with other people or share beyond the bedroom, you're going to know when that time is right, you know? You don't want to do that prematurely, I think. I think you want to do that when you feel, I tell people, like, share it when you don't have to apologize for it. You know what I mean? And that's what I was saying earlier about it could be a very simple demo or something. It doesn't have to, sometimes it's a lot to take on. Oh my God, I got to produce this and arrange this with all these different voices and things. And sometimes the song can get lost, you know, just follow what the song needs, you know, listen to what the song needs. And, you know, when I say you don't want to have to apologize for it, that means if you have to apologize for it, the essence of the song may not be coming through in a way. I don't know if that helps. I don't know if that's helpful.
Definitely. I mean, like you're saying, like waiting till the time is right when you want to share. I mean, there are things like when I first started, like when I was first getting into design, there's things that I never want anyone to ever see. Like, you know, like, but it was helping me in my process, and I think that's I feel like sometimes, again, we live in this kind of this age now where everything has to be like up online, content now, whatever. And it's like, there's no real time for growth. And like, I think as an artist, like the stuff that you don't show is also equally as important as the stuff that you do present to the world. But kind of speaking to that idea of like owning your failures and just like, there's some things that like, again, yeah, when I was designing early on, I was like, this is not great. I wanted to get it out there as quickly as possible too. But it was also something where I was like, having that patience of knowing like, okay, but maybe when I'm 27 now, but maybe by the time I'm 37, like I'll be really just like going nuts. And maybe even by the time I'm like 47, I'll be like looking back to stuff I did now and be like, you know, like, so again, it's always a process no matter what like field you're in, if it's music, art, like writing, like where you are now is not where you're going to be 10 years from now. And that's also an equally important thing to remember is like what you're doing right now, like being in your bedroom, like practicing, like playing songs, like having demos, like that is all part of the process as well. And I think that's like, it's a beautiful part of the process. It's not something that the rest of the world gets to see, but that's something when you're standing on a stage, like, you know where you came from and you know like the journey that you've been on to get here. So it's, again, I think even like if you're not sharing it right now, like don't feel like it's a failure, feel like it's part of the journey.
Are you applying to the Young Creators Project?
Yes, I believe I am.
Oh, great.
There you go.
Great place to
Fantastic.
start.
That's a great
That
place to
is,
start.
yay.
Yeah,
That's a great place to start. You know, and things like that. When you see be open, as we were saying earlier. When opportunities like this come along, jump on them, and you are. That's great. That's perfect. You know.
And I'd say also, whether you're a musician or a visual artist or a writer, make sure that whatever the piece of work is, that you like it, and that you know why you like it, and you know, and it's not because, well, I think this sounds like something on the radio, or because
Fantastic advice.
so and so said it was good. You are never going to be happy, and your work is never going to be successful, even if it's good, like technically really bomb, if you don't like it. Because that's what all this stuff is. It's expression, right? And so you have to, if you're happy, I think that's sort of, this piggybacks off of what Chris was saying about don't apologize for it. Like, it can be like bad technically or whatever, or needs some work. But if you really love it and it is like, you feel like it's a true extension of yourself, of self-expression, then you're not going to have anything to apologize for. And that's when it's ready to share.
It's such great advice. And it's easy to be like listening to the radio or listening to your favorite artist and go, oh, I'm going to try to make something that sounds like it would fit into that. And I feel like that's deadly. You know, you might hear something. So say you're putting together a song that you think, oh, this sounds like a Britney Spears, whatever, Doja Cat song or Dua Lipa song. By the time you go through the process of writing that song and producing the demo, blah, 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 the rest of the world's on to something else. So you just copied something that's now 6 months old or whatever, you know? You're going to chase that forever. You can't do that. You have to follow what's in your gut, in your heart. Follow your own personal muse. And don't worry about what it sounds like with relation to everything else. It has to be, you know, genuine. It has to be a genuine extension of you and your own, all the instincts that you've come up and all of your life experience is going into that work if it's true and it's honest, right? Does that make sense?
Oh, up there.
Hi, I don't know if you can see me. My name is Alexis. I'm
Alexis,
a
hi.
designer by day. I'm a songwriter. And I also was a journalism and PR major, so literally everything
Wow.
that's talking about in the room. But I wanted to see if there's any opportunities for me and others to be a part of the Young Creators Project. I'm not under 21, but I am a songwriter. I have done a few demos, and I greatly relate to the point that was made that you don't always have to produce and put stuff out there. I mean, you want to, but there is a certain value to, like, you know, coming to these sessions and learning songwriting theory. There's tons of books about it, and I just find that in my whole journey so far, I love like coming to events like this, meeting people, mentoring, and just being a part of the process to kind of like, I guess, help my inner child. So I wanted to see if there's any opportunities to volunteer as part of the Young Creators Project or any other role that the community can have, even if they're not submitting or even if they're not a part of KCRW.
After, you should seek out Liv, who spoke at the beginning, and they can tell you, where are they? There. Okay. Okay, you're going to connect right now.
We're watching her connect with her right now.
All right, you're welcome. Okay, anyone else? This young lady has been very patient.
Hi, I'm Jordan, and I was wondering, I'm into design, and I was knowing what I can do now to start up my career later to help it.
Yeah, that's an Evan question.
Yeah, I mean, University of YouTube is a great resource, but kind of what I was saying earlier is like really like, it's kind of funny. Like I've been going back and like watching The Simpsons now, like on Disney Plus, and like I don't know, and like seeing it now. Like I grew up watching this as a kid. My mom hated it, but like watching it now, like there's so many things that now, like little references to movies and like things that I've picked up on now that I'm like, this is so cool. So even like when I was younger, even just like watching The Simpsons on like TV, like I was actually kind of like training my brain to like be artistic and like again, like the big thing is just absorbing as much media as you can, like really like, but by doing that, you're kind of like filtering out the things like, I really don't like this, or I really love this director's style. I don't know what it is about him, but like, or about them. Like, I just want to like watch more of their films. Also like kind of getting brushed up on Photoshop, InDesign. Like those are obviously like, again, these are just tools. Like what really drives those tools is like the creativity behind it. Like there have been times when I was first starting my design career, I didn't have a computer. I didn't have like Photoshop. Like the only time I got to use a computer was like when I was in my college newsroom. Like, so like when I was at school, when I was on campus, I would like, whenever I was on campus, I took that opportunity to like, I'm gonna learn everything I can today. Like, and I mean, I would stay in class until like the campus shut down at like 9 or 10 o'clock, and I'd have to take a lift home because like I knew that day that's the only time I'm gonna have to have a computer. So really like having that drive, that internal drive to be like, how did that person do the collage? Like collage is a great example too, is like, how did I get into collage? I just one day picked up a magazine and started cutting things out. Like I would see like other great collage artists and be like, I'll never be like this, but I just knew I had to start somewhere. So like I just started doing it. And then from there I started scanning it, putting it into my computer. Like the more you start, like it just takes that first step is like really like you again, not being afraid to like fail and not being pressured to like put it up on social media. Again, like one of my first collages, I will never show the world. Like I don't even like my girlfriend will never see it. My mom will never see it. This is like, it's just like somewhere hidden away, but it was my first step into doing something that I had no idea how to do. And like there is that fear of it, but that's a great thing to have. If you're scared of like, oh, I don't know, what if I fail? It's like, that's a beautiful way to be. Like because here you're gonna be years later and wondering like, missing that feeling almost. So I would really say like, just do as much as you can. Like, if there's a certain medium that strikes your fancy or like really sticks out to you, don't be afraid to like pursue it. If there's like one that you've never tried, like for me, watercolor that's the new one. I'm like, oh my God, like how am I gonna, like, I'm gonna try and I will not share it with any of you, but like, rest assured, there's like terrible canvases at my house. But again, just being.
I have a lot of those.
Yeah. It'll make it as like a KCRW mug or something. Who knows? Like.
What kind of art are you interested in?
Well, I'm doing the KCRW Young Creators Contest,
Nice.
and I don't usually do watercolor, but I'm entering one with that.
Great.
You already have a leg up.
Yeah.
You already have a leg up, so there you go.
Very cool.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Great. Back there?
Oh, I just want to say shout out to Calix, Madeleine. I'm sure I heard you up there. Go Bears. I really need to say thank you all for your great advice. And I'm just a little bit over big. I mean, I can't say enough. I was a high school counselor, even though I studied broadcast journalism, went to teaching and counseling. And will this project continue? Is it an ongoing situation or annually or what?
Yeah, this is the second year, so hopefully it'll keep going. That's all Liv's brainchild, so Liv is the unsung hero of all of this. So shout out to Liv. Yeah, it's just fantastic.
Yeah.
We had such a great response last year, so I'm really excited for this year.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so hi, my name is Nicholas. I'm 14, and I'm just wondering, like, if you're independently releasing music with samples, how do you sort of navigate that copyright issue? And is it
Wait.
with the risk to just release it with unlicensed samples?
I'm sorry.
He has,
I didn't quite hear it.
a copyright question. If
Yeah?
they have a mix with samples, how do you navigate copyright issues?
You're making music with samples and you're wondering how you can release it?
Yeah, and like independently, like without a label, like no one else to go through.
Right. Well, it depends on where you want to release it. If you're putting it up on SoundCloud, you don't have to worry about anything. You know, I would start there. If you want to release it beyond SoundCloud, like put it up on the DSPs, that's a good question. It's a very long answer.
Okay, sorry.
Is there a certain length of the sample that falls below copyright
No,
protection?
not really. No, it's not like free, what do you call it?
Fair use, yeah.
Fair use, yeah. I don't think it's like that. Is your dad a lawyer?
Or mom?
Yeah, you know, the issue comes with how you're paying the people that you're sampling. That's where the issue comes, you know? A lot of people put stuff out under the radar, and when you get the money coming in, you save it, like in case anybody comes after you, you can pay them, you know? But I think it's going to be so below the radar that you don't need to worry about it in the short term. You know, I would say put it up on SoundCloud first, you know? Because you're 14, you know, you're just trying to get...
Like what big band is going to sue you?
You know what I mean? Yeah. SoundCloud's...
Well, famous last words.
Watch out for that. I still remember Metallica in the 2000s. That was
SoundCloud's the Wild West. I mean, you can still put stuff up on SoundCloud. People do it all the time, and there's not gonna be any issues, you know? What else could I say? Like...
Apps?
Well, the minute you start to release it on digital service providers and things, whether it's Bandcamp or, you know, you're selling it or, you know, making money from it, from the streams and stuff. I mean, I guess you make money on SoundCloud too, don't you? Technically. So, but SoundCloud, I would say, is your first go-to. Yeah. That's a good question.
So SoundCloud
it really just depends on the sample too.
That's true.
Yeah.
You know?
Because there are plenty of licensable samples out there.
Yeah.
Like that's a whole industry now. It's crazy.
If it's royalty free, right?
Yeah.
So you can, you know, there are sites where you can, that's a good idea, yeah. I mean, you can just make it so it's not, you don't want to sample like Elvis Presley song, you know? You know, I don't know what you're sampling either, but a lot of artists are making their music and then sampling themselves or... Yeah, or royalty-free samples, you know? Is it beats mostly? What are you sampling?
Like just sort of old records. I have this one song sampling Bus Stop by the Hollies.
Oh, God, I want to hear it.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
That does sound cool.
But I mean...
Don't edit yourself. Do that stuff.
Okay.
Create these pieces. You know, the rest can be figured out.
Yeah, like don't let that stop you.
Don't let it stop you at all. Keep doing it, man. That sounds super cool. Yeah. The idea that you'd go back to a Hollies track and sample it, you're 14, hell yeah, do it. That sounds really cool. You know, I'm just thinking about Beck, you know, when he put his demos together, he was sampling all kinds of stuff, and then he got signed to Geffen, and let Geffen worry about it, you know?
Yeah.
You know, so...
There's a whole department that takes care of that.
Yeah, there's a whole department. You know, don't let it at all edit or hold back your creativity. Fall into that as far and hard as you can. That's super cool.
Yes.
Hi. First of all, I just want to thank you guys, just broadly, you know, for being KCRW, because you're an amazing service to the community and the broader world, and for the AMA and Young Creators Project more specifically. This question, I hate to keep bugging you, Chris. You're getting a lot of them right now, but it's for you. So, for somebody who is creative and technically competent and all of that, but maybe maybe their destiny isn't to be like that person on stage touring or in the studio, cutting albums. You sort of alluded to some different things that you've done, like the school night or doing music supervision for film. And I know there are audio engineers and things like that. Like, can you just kind of talk about some of the other things that somebody who loves music could do besides just being that front center on stage person?
Again, you're in the music capital of the world. Every aspect of music is available to you, whether it's working at a label or a publisher or a music entertainment firm or a recording studio or, and each of these entities has so many different things you can be doing within them. Music supervision, where you're putting music in film or TV or commercials, artist management. Some of the biggest artist management companies in the world are here.
Sound editing for movies.
Music journalism.
Music journalism. Radio. And every one of these arenas has their own varied, pieces of the puzzle that you could dive into.
Do you think that somebody needs to go to school who's interested in what she was just talking about? If they're on their way to college, should they major in something related to this?
I don't think you need to go to school. School of Hard Knocks is a way to do it. I have a young cousin, she's 19 now, and she wanted to get involved in music. She thought she wanted to be an engineer, a music engineer. And she came out to Los Angeles, and I took her around to meet people. And there was I took her to one of the top music producers here in Los Angeles, and he was like, "Come here, work in the studio, make coffee, coil cables. We'll teach you Pro Tools. You can learn by doing." I think that's the most important thing,
Agreed.
Doing it. But again, it depends on what aspect you're in. When it comes to creating art, there's all sorts of artistic pursuits too. Are you the lyricist? Are you the music writer? Are you a producer? Are you an engineer? Are you a mixer? Are you doing mastering? There's... Is that helpful?
It is, thank you. Yeah. I think it's also the sort of a flip side, I think, just to, I don't know, not like be a damper, but I think it's also, there's a lot of people who want to be musicians, so they think, oh, I'll get a job in the music industry being a manager or something else like that, and then they get really, really burnt out on it.
Or they get stuck in it.
Or they get stuck in it, or they stop making their music because they're just like so burnt out on like tour managing or whatever. And that's fine, that's all instructive, but I think it's to think about, like, if you're gonna maybe do something that's like music adjacent, like, is it because you just like love this world and you want to be around it in whatever capacity, or maybe like you love scheduling and like, I don't, herding cats, so you would be great as a tour manager, but or you actually like really like curating atmospheres and energy like with your music, like you'll probably be a great DJ or music supervisor,
club promoter.
Or or a club promoter, exactly. But really think about that and be intentional with it, because the great thing is about making art or writing or expressing yourself in any way is you can always do it. And I think there's never been a better time to be able to just keep your stuff pure and not necessarily have to like tie it to your paycheck. It is fantastic if you can do both or have them both be the same thing. But I think it's like it's so easy to do stuff on the side and not have to worry about, again, getting that permission. So make sure that like you're really being honest with yourself about why you're choosing a career path and what that has to do with your relationship with your own art.
Yeah, I think like when you were talking about going back to like whether you need like an education in a certain thing, like for me, like having like going to like a community college instead of going to like a 4-year university, I feel like if you're like at a university, sometimes you tend to get like fast tracked, like I just need to get this degree and get out. Like where a community college, you actually have some time to like when I first started going to Citrus, I was actually going for audio engineering. Like I wasn't even like thinking about journalism. I was like, because again, I grew up loving music, right? Like I was like, oh, I love music, I love bands, I want to be in like the music industry. So I take audio engineering. I was like, wow, there's a lot of electronic, and this is a lot of stuff. This is not what I want to do, you know. And I having that freedom, and I was like, okay, let me try. I love writing about albums, and maybe I'll try writing about music. And that's kind of what started me down this road of journalism, was like writing about bands. But like, again, I think Dre had a really great point about like not, you know, if you can find a way to like, you know, get paid to do what you love to do, is great. You know, there's days that I'm so thankful that I get to design and I get a paycheck for doing this thing, but there are days where you get burnt out. And there's some days where, and then, you know, and for me, it's like, if I only had my love in one thing, like design, and like let that burn me out, that's how people step away from it. You're just, so, you know, you find things that are outside of, you know, you love music, great. Find something that's outside of music. Like for me, it's cooking. I love cooking. Like there's days where I'm like, I don't even want to look at a computer. Like I'm just gonna like make cocktails, make some food, like completely be in a completely separate thing. And I've had friends and family tell me like, oh, you should go to bartending school, or you should go to culinary school. And I'm like, are you nuts? Like, no, like this is what I love cooking. I don't want to make it a job. Like, you kidding me? I'll lose my mind. So like, you know, again, it's really important to like find that separation. It may be, yeah, you're passionate and you love music. You want to like, but again, being very, very cautious about like how you're going to get into this industry, because it can burn you out like pretty hard. Like, again, I got burnt out in music, and that's how I ended up at a community college and discovering journalism, because I was like, okay, music, I'm done. I'm done with it. I've done everything in music. I'm so good. So.
Yes. Right there, second question.
Hi, sorry, I asked a question earlier.
That's
but
okay.
My name's Maddie, or Madeleine.
Hello. Tip of the hat.
And this is for the journalism people. I'm really interested in journalism, but I have zero idea how it works or anything. So how do you guys go from an idea to like a pitch or getting it on air even?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. You're interested in journalism in doing it, or do you do any journalism, or?
No, but I love writing. And
you love writing, and you
So you're already doing it. I'm gonna be really honest. It's kind of like music or anything else. You might have some crazy, awesome byline or be on a stage at KCRW doing an Ask Me Anything, but just by putting your pen to paper or just talking about your ideas or even just thinking about it, you're already starting on that journey. What I've always done, especially here at KCRW, is leaning into what I know and what I like and what I'm curious about. One of my favorite stories, and everybody I think on this stage knows about it at this point, but I was born and raised in LA, and I left for 8 years up to Washington State. And there was, besides missing my family, missing LA, missing all that, I go to school and I would always think about, for all y'all maybe you know it, the LAUSD coffee cake.
Oh my God, yes.
Right, exactly. I was up there, freezing cold, snow, rain, everything. And I was like, God, I would love to have a slice of that cake. You know, I was like 16, junior, sophomore in high school. I'm just thinking back to like my middle school days, thinking about that coffee cake. So when I got to KCRW, I was like, what the heck am I gonna report about? Like, I've been gone for 8 years. I don't know what I'm gonna do. And I started thinking about, what do I love? Or I also talk to people all the time. It's like, hey, like, what are you curious about? Or what are you passionate about? Or what do you have questions about? Like, you know, how does City Hall work? I don't know. That was the worst example ever. But to the point about the coffee cake, I had been just talking about it upstairs in the kitchen with someone we work with. And she was like, Danny, like, why don't you work on a story about that? And I was like, I don't know. Like, why would I do that? And she was like, the passion that you are displaying right now, is it about a piece of confectionery goodness? Sure. It's not, it's not breaking news, but it matters to people. When I brought up the coffee cake, we heard the reaction in the crowd. Right? And so it's just finding those things, right, that get you going, that motivate you. Also keeping in mind that you're not burning yourself out, because it's also really gosh darn exhausting sometimes. But it's finding what you like and what you love, and talking to people who also like that or love that, or on the other side, hate it. Why do you hate it? Tell me more about that. And And also something that other folks also said as well was, we live in an age where you can just tell stories anywhere. I'm always like on my Instagram, like stories and taking random videos and being like, hey, do you guys know about this? Or, when I was in high school, I had a blog for a while. I had a Tumblr, and I would just like write about my life, right? It's just, and it's all these great places where you can just start doing it.
Do you have a newspaper at your school?
Yes, but it's one of those things where they have it so that they can show it to people on tours, and then they kind of shelve it for the rest of the year.
So it's not a real paper?
No.
Sounds like an opportunity for you to create.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know what? I think all you guys in this room have to give yourself a little bit of credit. I think in some ways one of the hardest things about coming up and becoming an adult and deciding what you want to do, one of the hardest things is knowing what you love, what it is you love, where your passions lie. Because once you know what you want to do or you have a passion for, then it's about pursuing that and following it and listening to it and keeping it dear and keeping it close to your heart, Everybody in this room seems to have at least some sense that there's a passion for the things that we're talking about up here. So that's a gift that you have that I want you to give yourselves credit for.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing what your passion is, Maddie, with journalism, you recognize that passion. Ella, you guys, that's a beautiful thing that is yours to nurture and to protect.
Can I also say that it's also okay not to know?
Yeah.
And if you have questions
it's so
and and a lot of people don't know their passion until they're 60 years old or more sometimes.
Yeah. Danielle Ponder, look at her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect example.
I started working with an artist 2 years ago who, when I met her, I had heard some demos of hers, and I went tracking her down, and I got a phone number for her, and I called her, and I'm wanting to hear, what she's working on, this music she might be working on, because I heard her voice. And when I reached her, I hear all this noise going on in the background. I'm like, where are you? And she goes, I'm at work. And I'm like, what do you do? She goes, I'm a public defender in Rochester, New York. And I knew that she was a singer because I had heard a song of hers. And I was like, what? And she goes, yeah, I just got out of court. What's up? And I asked her if she could send me some music she might be working on so I could hear what she was up to. And she had been working on demos her whole life. And she sent me these demos. Turns out she was almost 40 years old, but working as a public defender. And, I over time, we're now working together, but she left her job as a public defender because she...
It's a great story, and she's a beautiful musician. Yeah. Chris told me about her, so I interviewed her on the show, and it was really a wonderful
She was just
interview.
here earlier. If you saw me speaking to a woman earlier, that was her.
Oh,
wait, really?
Yeah, she was
Oh,
here.
wow. Anyway.
But on a more practical level, how do you get people to talk to you? Because journalism is less of a solitary affair than music or art. How do you get people to talk to you, especially when you don't really have the name KCRW behind you when you're
passion?
Well,
your passion.
Let me clue you into a little secret. People love talking about themselves.
They love it.
They
Truly
can't
rule
stop
number
talking
one.
about themselves.
Yeah.
And if you show even a flicker of interest, they will go on and on and on. So if you're just open and curious and say, Dad, I have some questions about you. Can we sit down and talk about this? How did you decide to do what you wanted to do, Dad? And then all of a sudden, Dad's like, oh, you're asking me a question? Oh, I'm so flattered. And then the stories will come out, and you'll have a lovely interview with your dad.
I do want to speak to that point real quick. As I mentioned earlier, I used to stutter a lot as a kid, and also I have a lot of anxiety in general sometimes. My hands are kind of sweaty still from being on stage. I'll be really honest. Sometimes I challenge myself to just get out and talk to people. I know a little stranger danger vibes, right? Kind of want to be careful. But in a safe environment or with friends or family around, whenever you go out, that's a great way that I've always pushed myself to just find people to talk to. Because it's great to have a big, a big name behind you, but also like in general, like how do you just say hi, or how do you like just get their story? And I really just want to like really very much just second what Madeleine is saying. We love talking about ourselves.
Yeah.
We are all selfish folk sometimes. Little vain
You should
sometimes.
practice with your family.
Yeah.
And get their stories. You'll be surprised what you learn.
Keep
I did that
asking
with my
questions,
father.
yeah.
I actually interviewed him. He was a Holocaust survivor, and he was very reluctant to talk about it with me as I was growing up. And so I thought, how am I going to get these stories out of him? And I actually set up a microphone, set up a recording, and formally interviewed him. And in that way, he could open up and tell me the stories of his childhood and how he came to the United States. So, so I recommend doing that. And then I had that tape for when he died and made a beautiful piece for the memorial. Yeah. Yes.
So let me just stand up. And I wanted to thank you all for being here also. I'm Angela, and I teach at Riverside City College. I teach journalism and mass comm, and I want to connect with you afterwards,
absolutely.
Evan. But I have a two-parter question. One might be easy, and the other might be a little more difficult.
Uh-oh.
And so part of it might be directed to Chris, and that is, do you think that radio as we know it is becoming obsolete, especially with the convergence of the internet and people, listening to the radio on every device except the traditional devices that, they usually listen to? So if you could speak to that first. And then the other question might be to Chris, and that is, why do public radio, especially those that are based on college campuses, traditionally play jazz and classical sets versus more different genres? And how was KCRW able to break out of that mode and do more of an eclectic format?
Wow. So first question to Chris and second question
No.
to Chris.
First question. I think the first question is to the whole panel because we all
okay.
work at KCRW, So anybody want to take the...
I would start with the radio thing. We've been counted down and out since it began, 100 years ago? So I don't think, but I think, that's kind of a flip answer to you. I'm sorry, to your very thoughtful question. I think we are experiencing a lot of challenges with streaming and all of the other stuff that people have to fill their lives and their attention. So it is very difficult. But I do not count radio out. And radio meaning not necessarily radio on your car radio, but radio in terms of what we do here and wherever you access it. So if it's on your phone, on your app, whatever, on your Alexa, it's still radio by the way that we count it as radio. So yeah, it is challenging. We have fewer like traditional radio listeners now, for sure. But here we are.
Podcasts are incredibly popular. And
yeah.
That is radio.
Right.
You can call it podcast, but it's the same.
Is, yeah. If it's good, it's radio.
I mean,
it's good. It's radio.
I was gonna say also for me, I think. Oh, sorry.
No. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, with radio, what's great about it is the fact that there's like a human on the other end of it. Like right now, we were watching like Ann Lit like on the radio right now, like curating content for, like curating music for us, which is like, I think like right now, again, speaking to like this age that we're in, where everything's just widely available, where everyone just wants to like, just go on Spotify and just, you get like this option paralysis where you're like, there's so much music out there, like you don't even have the time to cover it all, or you just like, it just gets overwhelming, or you end up listening to the same couple albums over and over again, the same couple artists over and over again. So having like a human being on the other end and just being like, hey, here's what's really cool today. Like, here's what we're gonna like my morning before I even started at KCRW started with Morning Becomes Eclectic. I mean, even when Ann Lit was like the host of it. And then, with Novena and Anthony now on it. And it's like, I started my morning every morning during the pandemic listening to Novena and Anthony, and like Travis Holcomb, like Freaks Only. I would take music that he was playing on the show and put it into a playlist on Spotify for myself. So again, it's just great to have like, what is this? And just having that like reaction of like something that's being curated for you. And not only that, but it has that local angle to it. So it's not just like broadly, like, it's not like a big name radio station that's like just broadcasting all over and just like, we are LA. It's like, okay, but like we truly are LA. Like we again, like in every facet and way that we try to be, but there are some challenges, but I feel like, again, just having that human connection, just knowing the DJs, knowing the artists, like even like I think today was like the first time I met Madeleine Brand like in person, and I was just like, oh my gosh, what? Like I just know the voice so well. It's just, you really do, like there are people on the other end of this, and I think that's something that people nowadays want more than anything, is just that community and that sense of connection. So I do think radio listening is down, but definitely not out.
Yeah, and when you think about radio, Sirius XM is radio, Beats, Apple Music, that's radio. I don't think playlisting is going to replace radio because there's no human contact and no human connection, like you're saying. Radio is a very intimate medium. There could be 5 of you in a car on a road trip, and the radio's on. That radio host is talking one-on-one to everybody in that car. There could be a conversation in the front seat, but somebody's in the back seat leaning against the window, and they're like one-on-one with the radio host. It's a very intimate medium.
It is the most intimate medium and the most visual medium, I think, which I was talking about earlier with you. That's why I always say I'll see you tomorrow, because it is.
At the end of her show, she says, "See you tomorrow."
Because you are creating these images in your mind when you're listening to the radio. Yeah. It's just very, very visual and intimate, which is what I love about it. Yeah. We are running out of time, so okay.
What about these?
I think these are those.
Okay.
IRL.
Are there questions that people wrote that they didn't ask?
Oh my gosh.
There's.
There is.
Well, while we're just picking the next question, I just want to jump on and add one more thing about that radio thing. I think it's a little bit of a spicier take, but I feel like we're kind of in a post format era when it comes to journalism and storytelling, which is that they're all important, but what's most important is like stuff's always going to change. Like Twitter used to be where it was at. Twitter's falling away. Radio has always been radio, always will be radio. But podcasts were doing great. Now podcasts are declining. They might come back. What stays the same? It's the people at your organization. It is the ethos. It is the stories you're trying to tell. It's the community you foster.
It's storytelling and the human voice.
It's the storytelling, it's the human voice, it's the perspective, it's the cultivation. How that gets disseminated to your audience is always going to change, and you always need to be prepared for that instead of trying to constantly adjust and play catch up, which is, I think, why we see a lot of the challenges in media and journalism that we do today. But I think that's why KCRW has continued to have the reputation that it has, draw the employees that it has, draw the audience that it has, because that has stayed consistent, and I think it always will. So
you can sense the authenticity. Like you as a listener, if it's real or not.
Yeah.
We are all weird as heck. And we want to make sure that we are putting that on the air as well, because we're all kind of weird in our own way. Maybe not weird, but we all got our own stories, and we've all got our perspectives and our own takes and our own histories.
And our own passions.
You're more than the format that disseminates you.
I forgot what the second part was.
Well, the second part was
music.
The jazz by classical by day, jazz by night. I mean, I think it started because public radio was sort of a sign to sort of bring attention to lesser exposed musics, and back in the day when there was maybe rock and roll and pop music and all that, it was a haven. Public radio was a haven. Left to the Dial was a haven for the lesser, celebrated formats of classical and jazz. But as I think time moved on, those stations got stuck. I just think they were. They built listenerships around these formats, but I think most of the big markets, Philadelphia and Seattle and New York and LA, they all kind of matured and became aware that there was more to the world than just classical and jazz music. And you already know the story of how KCRW became more eclectic.
Yeah, it's kind of a bigger question too, in terms of audience and who the audience is, and the profitability of information over music in terms of sponsorship. And anyway, it's a whole other conversation. But as we are running out of time and over time, one last question. Yes.
Hi, my name is Miles. I'm a musician as well. I'm 17. And so I've been making music for like around 3 to 4 years. I've been singing my whole life, playing different instruments. And I just want to know, like, in terms of songwriting, this could be a question for not only Chris, but like maybe people in the journalist area. What's like a good way to take your experiences in life and convert it into things like lyrics and poetry and writing, so then you can really express your music in a way that people can, relate to?
Chris, or
I mean, I think we were like we said earlier, like authenticity is really something that like people gravitate towards and people relate to. I mean, one of my favorite writers who like when I was in high school, my journalism teacher, because again I was just doing like album reviews, like metal bands and whatever, and my journalism teacher gave me a copy of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and he told me like Hunter S. Thompson like reminds me so much of you, and I remember reading that book and just being like, like it unlocked something in my brain. And I was like, I didn't know people could write like this or about the things that he wrote about. It changed my life in a way that like, I mean, here I am, like, years later now, like still involved in journalism because of the fact that like this teacher gave me this book. Or like my art teacher in high school gave me a copy of Wild at Heart, David Lynch's, a VHS thing. And like, again, just that authenticity that people bring, like a voice like David Lynch is like super authentic. It's very weird, very like unconventional, but like there's truth in that. And I think people gravitate towards that. So whatever like experiences you have, good or bad, I mean, there's like an avenue for it, and people really gravitate towards that. Like, I think that's, again, what people are looking for.
Yeah, I'm sure you have musicians, songwriters that you admire, that you love. Look at the way they're writing their songs and telling their stories. Really learn from the best,
Also practice. Like, do you keep a journal?
I have a Google Doc that I just write on my
But like a daily, just like a quick reflections of how did your day go? Like you probably don't know what's in your head until it's out, until you write it down, and you might not realize that there's some incredible little aperçu that you have just from your daily life. So if you keep a practice of like quick journaling, that might help too.
And to Madeleine's point, I was going to say to your point, Madeleine, I mean, sometimes I just open up like voice memos and I just start talking and ranting and rambling. If I'm sad, if I'm happy, if I'm exhausted, right? I just like get it all out. And sometimes I'll just throw that into like a transcription service and just like read my thoughts. And it's the craziest thing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? What happened that day? Like, I don't even remember that. But I'm able to not only like see those words, but hear that emotion, right? That it pulls out in me and how I felt in that exact moment. And I think that helps me with writing my scripts even. I'm like trying to like find a great, like witty way to talk about line dancing, and it sounds so like medicinal and clinical. And then I'm like, wait, how would I tell my friends? Or how would I tell my mom?
Mm-hmm.
I love that rule. Yeah, like just how would you tell your friends? How would you tell your mom? Yeah. Like depending on who you always ask yourself who's your audience, but like, yeah, like how would I write poetry and stuff too, and sometimes I just get like so like knotted up, and I'm like, I don't know, this doesn't feel genuine, and then I'm just like, how do I talk when I'm just like, who's your best friend? The one that you are like the realist with, like not broing out, but like there might be some tears, like think about how you would describe something to them. And then that's when the real stuff comes out, because it's not always going to be the prettiest words either, but it's definitely going to be the ones that hit. So
yeah, like if you can say something in like 3 words, like like again, like to me, like an artist like the Ramones, right? They could do more with 3 chords than like any jazz artist could do with like all the scales and notes in the world. Like, you know what I mean? Like when like Beat on the Brat comes on, you're like, yes. You know what I mean? Like, sorry, I saw your Ramones shirt earlier, so that's like got me locked in. But again, yeah, sometimes it may not be the prettiest way, but it evokes a reaction. And I think again, like and the only way you get better at it is by staying in tune with it. Like staying in tune with your thoughts, staying in tune with your journaling, your emotions. I would say like write down, like I know a Google Doc is one thing, but if the internet shuts down one day, there goes that Google Doc, So like having a journal, writing things down, pen on paper, it's like a good habit to get into, because you really like I hate writing, and I still write in a journal like every day, or I draw things out. It's super important. Like the cloud can't have everything, so.
All right.
If I could just say, as a parent.
Yeah, sure.
As a parent of a young creator, I just want to say thank you to all of you for all of your advice and your perspective, and particularly the notion that you're already doing it. When you're younger and you're thinking, oh, I've got to take this class, or I've got to follow this path, and then to hear that, no, you're already doing it. Just start.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's no set path, and I guess for me as a parent, again, most importantly, get out from behind the screen, get out there and engage and do it.
Totally.
The worst thing that can happen is someone says no, and then you just go on to the next person until you.
Thank you. And
Thank y'all.
Thank you for coming
Give
out.
yourselves a round of applause. If you're here, you're already a young creator.
And if you want to apply, please do. Everyone here and everywhere to apply. It's Young Creators, KCRW.com, right? /Young Creators. That's it. That's right, Liv. KCRW.com/Young Creators. Thank you so much. And we went over, and I'm so excited we did because it shows that you're interested. And I'm happy to see you
thanks
all.
for showing up.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. And I'll see you next time.
Yeah.